AI should not be a tool that people on your team use sometimes. In 5 years, AI will be the operating system that your company runs on. Every workflow, every decision, and every process flowing through one system that continually learns and improves. That is the future of manufacturing. You have decades of orders, drawings, customer relationships, and tribal knowledge of people who've been doing the work for 20 plus years. And that data is gold. The problem is that data is not queryable. None of that data is doing anything for you. It just sits there. And no AI that you buy can ever work properly until it can read it. This video is about how you can fix that, about what a company brain actually is, and why your ERP isn't one. Let's start with the definition. A company brain is a single place where every piece of information that your company has, like documents, orders, processes, products, your vision, your history, everything is connected. It's enriched with context that comes from your people, and it's available to every employee by just asking a question in plain English. It's like having a ChatGPT specifically for your company, but it's your own AI that doesn't leak your IP and that doesn't leak your data. That brain doesn't just know your data or store your data. It knows how things relate to each other. So when a customer asks if you've ever built something similar to their RFQ, the brain checks every order for the last 10 years, finds the closest match, and tells your team in seconds. And that's the difference between data just sitting on a server somewhere and a brain that actually thinks across what you have. So where does this knowledge currently live in your company today? This is what I see across almost every manufacturer that I speak to. They have Excel spreadsheets, Teams chats, email threads, their ERP, a CRM, a SCADA system, manufacturing execution system, paper notes on the shop floor, a file server, a SharePoint site, or maybe many SharePoint sites, sometimes even Trello, and then the most important one in John's head. I hear things like, we have John's been here for 30 years. So when something breaks or when a customer asks a question or when an order looks weird, everyone goes and interrupts John to get an answer. And that is completely fine. It's great that you have John, but you only want John to be interrupted one time. So the next time when something happens that's very similar or the exact same thing happens again, John doesn't get interrupted. That is closing the loop. If you work in manufacturing, you're likely very familiar with control systems. So you'll recognize what's going on here. It's a difference between an open loop and a closed loop. So an open loop is a system where there is no feedback mechanism, where a decision gets made, an action gets executed, and the outcome is never systematically captured and fed back on. Open loops are lossy by design. So every time someone solves a problem, the solution disappears into a person's head. The next time that same thing comes up, you start from scratch, you look at the same information, you ask the same people questions, and with a closed loop, every problem and every solution gets captured, fed back into the system. So the next time that problem comes up, the system already knows what to do, or there's already a process written that someone can search through in the company brain where they can find the solution to that problem and solve it fast. So the company brain is how a manufacturer goes from an open loop system to a closed loop system. So how much does the open loop problem actually cost you in your business? If you look at where your team's 8-hour workday actually goes, McKinsey says that knowledge workers spend 1.5 to 2.5 hours every day just searching for information. Another 2 hours get spent on meetings, and they likely have an hour for lunch and other breaks, not to mention getting interrupted multiple times a day by other employees asking them questions. And the UC Irvine found that every time someone gets interrupted, it can take up to 20 minutes for them to fully refocus. So by the time that you add up all of the time that your employees are spending in a typical workday, the people in the front or back office of your company are likely getting 2 to 3 hours of actual focus work done every day out of their 8-hour shift. So if you do the math on top of the search part, which is the easiest part for us to cut, if we're trying to find a way to get more productivity from every employee in the company, the easiest part to attack is the search time. It's very reasonable with a company brain to cut that search time by at least 50%, which means that you could give every single person in your front and back office an extra hour to do focused work. And that could be like a 30 to 50% increase in the total output of every employee in your front and back office. It's likely that that would be significantly less if you were looking at a factory worker who might only spend 30 to 60 minutes searching for information every day, or potentially even less. But if you completely forget about the factory workers and you look at a company of about 200 employees that would likely have about 100 knowledge workers, you'd be getting the equivalent of 10 plus new hires worth of additional productivity, which could be worth over $1 million a year in labor. And to get to that $1 million, we were conservative on the time savings. We were conservative on saying that the factory workers aren't going to save any time, even though they likely would. So when you're in an environment where we have a workforce shortage, this is one of the cheapest and highest ROI investments that you can make. One of the questions I'm often asked about when it comes to talking about this topic is, isn't an ERP system kind of like a brain for my company? And the answer is just no, because your ERP is not a company brain. Your ERP stores structured data, and it's not in a format that an AI can understand it. Your ERP system is basically just spreadsheets joined to other spreadsheets with often abbreviated column names that don't actually really mean anything to an AI system. They're usually company-specific terms in there. So to an AI, pretty much all of that data is just garbage unless it has the appropriate context in order to understand what it means. Some of the essential context that an ERP system is missing are things like, why does a customer in Texas get a different lead time to one that's in Ohio? Or why do you always upsize the bearings on cranes that are over 25 tons? Or why does your top customer get a 5% discount on this product line, but not on this one? And none of that data lives in your ERP system. That information either lives in your team's heads or it lives in some documents or SOPs that are stored in another system. So that is, data on one side and information and knowledge on the other. And the brain is the layer that closes that gap. And this is important because your AI systems or AI in general is only as good as the context or information that it has access to. So if you think about this like training a new employee, if you sat them down on day one and you didn't give them any documentation, you didn't give them any product information or where to find that product information, you didn't give them the customer history, you didn't give them SOPs, they would be useless. They wouldn't have any idea what to do apart from what they had maybe learned in their previous roles or in university or in trade school. And an AI is exactly the same. Your ERP gives it data and the brain gives it context, which is the same context that you would give to a new hire on day one, which means that when a new employee starts, they're going to be significantly faster to get up to speed if you have a company brain. So let me tell you about the first time that I noticed this problem, because it's not something that I read in a paper. It's something that I actually suffered from and actually experienced while implementing AI systems in manufacturing companies. The first time I built an AI system for a manufacturing company, it was in the customer service department. And in that service department, they had really high turnover. It took every new hire months to get up to speed. They had thousands of documents. They had answers in their email that went back 5 or 6 years. And information was buried in folder after folder. You had folders nested 10 deep. And if you went one click in the wrong direction, you were down off into some tangent that you would never be able to find the information that you were looking for. So What did people do in this department? Well, they defaulted to the easy option, which was, let's just ask the manager, let's just ask one of the people that's been here for 10, 15, 20 years. And that's okay for specifically difficult queries or things that don't often come up. But if that's happening for almost every question, then the manager or the senior employees barely get anything done themselves because they're always answering all these questions. They're constantly getting interrupted. And it almost defeats the purpose of hiring anyone at all. And that's not just a problem that happens in customer service. That happens across every department in manufacturing, where the manager acts as a brain or the engineer acts as a brain, and they become overloaded by answering all these questions where their productivity starts to dip and nobody really knows why. And the second time I saw this same pattern come up was when manufacturers came to me and said, hey, we started using ChatGPT, we started using Claude, and every time I use it, I have to give it so much context in order to get a useful answer, where it can't write in our voice, it doesn't know anything about our products, and we've tried to use it, but we can't really use it for anything serious. And they're correct, like that is all true, because with no brain, every conversation essentially starts from scratch. You might have a system prompt in there that stores some information about your company, but if you don't have this company brain, every employee has to become a power user. They have to be an AI expert in order to get any real value from the system. They have to understand prompt engineering and context management, and they have to understand skills and tools and all of these different things that, yes, an AI expert will be able to understand that. But just like not everyone on your team became a software engineer, not everyone on your team needs to become an AI expert to get value from AI. The way to solve this is to build this brain once, to build this layer that connects all of your information so that every time your team uses AI, it's easier for them to use it correctly than it is for them to use it incorrectly. So beyond a little bit of time savings here and there, I want to walk you through exactly what can get unlocked when this type of system's in place. Like, what is the real value? What are the actual benefits of this system that can make not just a difference to the bottom line, but also enable you to add more value to all of your customers? This is the most important part of the video, so make sure to take some notes. When you have a company brain, you can search through 10 years of previous orders to answer a customer question in seconds. You can find out instantly whether you've actually built something before that is similar to a new request for quote. You can onboard a new estimator or a new salesperson in days instead of months. You can catch errors in a quote before it goes out the door by checking it against all of the other quotes that you've ever created. You can build marketing materials in the voice of your company without having to outsource it to a marketing agency. You can build agents that actually do work and act in the systems that you have, because for the first time, those agents have something that they can read and tools that they can call and context to add to the work that they're doing. You can answer customer questions on your website without them even needing to talk to a person on your team. This means you can be available 24/7, even when nobody is working in your business. A system like this can help you to find bottlenecks in your factory. They can help you to find bottlenecks in the overall system, from inquiry through to shipment and even through lifecycle management of your products. They can help you to track every single order, every change, and every decision that happens from inquiry through to shipment. And the biggest one of all, every problem that gets solved makes the next problem easier to deal with. And here is the one key thing that I need you to remember from this video. Your company can only work as fast as your team can find information. Your company can only work as fast as your team can find information. Whether it's your salespeople answering questions about a request for quote, whether it's your factory members looking for information about a machine that's gone down, whether your customer service department is searching for information about prior orders, or your engineering team is looking at previous designs. All of them are only as fast as how quickly that information can be passed through the system. And right now, in most manufacturing companies, information moves at the speed at which someone can walk across the building to ask John a question. But with a brain in your company, information can move at the speed at which you can ask a question. Whether that's typing a question or speaking a question, you can find information in seconds with a company brain. But why does this matter now in 2026? Well, in 5 years, every manufacturer will have a system like this, the same way that every company right now has a website. And just like websites, some are good, some are bad, and the same will be true for company brains. But the ones who skip out on this will be in the same position that manufacturers who don't have a website are in 2026. They simply cannot compete. But why is that? In manufacturing, speed is everything. If one company can quote me in an hour and ship me the parts in 1 to 3 days, whereas another company takes 3 days just to get back to my question, I am never going to buy from that slower company. Companies that have this brain will move faster. Companies who don't cannot use AI effectively. So what will happen to the companies who don't adapt? Well, just like what has happened in the past, these companies will start to lose orders. They'll start to lose even some of their most loyal customers. And eventually they'll likely be bought or they'll be sold for the value of the physical assets that they have. So their machines, their factories, the land that their company sits on. But the data that lives inside of these manufacturing companies, like the documented knowledge of how they build things, who their customers are, their designs that they've built over the past 20, 30, 40 years, every problem that they've ever solved. If they've kept that information and it's stored in an effective way, that data could be worth more than all of the equipment that lives in the building. But if it's not documented, if it's not stored in a brain that makes it easily searchable, if it walks out the door every time that someone retires, then it could be worth nothing. I hear a lot about greenfield manufacturing and how people say that greenfield manufacturers have a massive advantage when it comes to moving at speed and building things faster. And although a lot of this is true, if you do harness your information and your data in this way, there is a chance that you could have a significant advantage on these companies. Because these greenfield manufacturers don't have 20, 30, 40 years of accurate information related to how they deal with problems, what happens to machines when they break down in the field, how to quote things that maybe the greenfield manufacturer has never even seen before. Every company and every position that exists on the board has their own advantage. For you, your company's legacy and the information that you've collected could be your greatest asset. The decades of orders, of drawings, of customer relationships, and the problems that your team has been solving, you're not starting from zero. You're starting with this gold mine of information. You just have to make it queryable. The next video in this series, I'll be showing you 3 ways that you can have your own company brain in your business in a way that you could build yourself, leveraging existing tools that are relatively cheap for you to set up, or going full stack with a vector database, an injection pipeline, and the proper security that a manufacturing company would need. If you can't wait for that video to drop and you want to see a custom demo of a company brain for your particular manufacturing business, have a look at the link down below in the description. We can build a demo for your company in less than 24 hours, but before we build a demo like that, we just need to make sure that you would be a good fit. And if you're not a good fit, we can also give you some opportunities or some ideas around how you can build a company brain yourself. If you found this video useful, you can subscribe down below so that you don't miss the next video. And the little bell icon right next to that will make sure that you always get notified when we post a video on this channel. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.